Alabama's growth in the last 3 weeks really has been staggering. This is what the offense for Alabama needs to be. Okay. Jalen Milroe, Justice Haynes, Jam Miller, they ran the ball 48 times against LSU. They threw it 18 times. Now, that's an imbalance that would probably concern a lot of coaches, but it doesn't concern me because I think about what does Jalen Milroe do best? Where is he at his best? Is it when he's carrying the football as a ball carrier and as an explosive weapon on the ground? Or is it when he's in a traditional drop back from the pocket type of passing quarterback? I'm not saying he can't be a passing quarterback. He can. He's proven that time and time again that he is a very adequate thrower and a rock solid weapon throwing the football. But I can tell you this, if I'm a defensive coordinator and I have to put together a defensive plan against Alabama and against Jalen Milroe, let me tell you what scares me to death. Not his ability to pick me up through the air. Like pick me apart through the air, that doesn't scare me to death. I acknowledge that can happen, but that's not what scares me to death. You know what scares me to death? Him taking off and going 72 yards to the house like he did this past weekend. All right. Think about how different the plan was offensively for Alabama. Think about how different the plan was offensively for Jalen Milroe against LSU when compared to what we saw against Tennessee. Tennessee, I think he dropped back like 37 times. Well, against LSU, 18 times. Now, last year against LSU, a lot of people will point to, hey, this is about LSU's defense. Fair enough, but the commitment to the run game was very, very different. Because if you look at last year's game against LSU, Jalen's yards on the ground were by way of scramble. He had 155 yards rushing last year against LSU, but 109 of those 155 were on scramble drill. So he drops back, doesn't like anything, he takes off. This year was very, very different. On scrambles, he had 10 yards. That's it. 10 yards. Well, on the designed runs that he had, he averaged nearly 18 yards per carry. So that goes to show you. He had 10 carries, designed runs for 185, and then he had like another 6 or 7 scrambles that were for 10. This was one of the best rushing attacks we've ever seen from an Alabama quarterback. And I think what was most intriguing is that they dominated not just with their scheme. They had a lot of really good looks and a really good formations to just kind of formation the heck out of this LSU defense, but they also dominated on the line of scrimmage as well. A couple other things that have been a problem for Alabama this year. I think yards before contact, huge. Well, guess what? Jalen Milroe, 175 yards, okay? 175 yards on the designed runs. 157 of those 175 came before contact. Another area that's been a problem for Alabama this year has been third down. They were 10 of 13 on third down. They ran for 111 yards in those situations, most of which were off of Milroe designed runs. So that was huge. And another thing too, and I think Kalen DeBoer and his staff deserve tons of credit because I thought the defensive plan was exceptional as well. They attacked up the middle. They mixed coverage. These receivers, we knew these receivers were a potential problem for this Alabama secondary. Well, when you're adjusting coverage all the time and you're bringing pressure up the middle, it doesn't matter how good these receivers are because Garrett Nussmeier's never at any point going to feel comfortable. And he was really uncomfortable from start to finish. They hit him. They influenced his timing. They had a massive effect on his confidence level in delivering the football. And he just couldn't scramble away on a couple times. The sack fumble after the fourth down stop was one of the biggest plays of the game. But Kalen DeBoer, it just proves when you give him an opportunity to go and take on the best coaches in college football, he's going to have his team ready to play. Let's just look at his record quickly against some of the best coaches in the country. He's 1-0 against Kirby Smart. He's 3-0 against Dan Lanning. He's 2-0 against Steve Sarkisian, and now he's 1-0 against Brian Kelly. Kalen DeBoer, when you give him time, and you give him the opportunity to evaluate, he's going to get the job done. And then on the other side, LSU, man, what happened to them the last 6 quarters? I'm more specifically their offense. Look, their defense has had challenges this year. That's not that uncommon. Now, I've been encouraged, at least prior to the last 6 quarters, that the defense had turned the corner. Clearly, that isn't the case. Because if I look at what's happened the last 6 quarters, man, I don't know what to think. You got turnovers that make no sense, that are just bad mistakes. You got back-breaking penalties. You got problems with protection and allowing guys to come and blitz and be unaccounted for in the protection. The red zone offense has been a huge issue. They've had dropped passes. I mean, when I watch their offense, the rhythm is a major issue. And look, you have an offensive line that's got veteran pieces. And you have a quarterback that's a veteran as well. I know he doesn't have a ton of starts, but he's been around college football for a while. I mean, the wide receivers, that's a star-studded group, and they're not necessarily having as much of an impact on the game as they need to. And if you look at this offensive game, man, they rushed for 59 yards on 23 carries. It's 2.5 yards per carry. Now, I know you need to count for all these different, sacks and things like that. But the fact that 59 yards and take into account that they did have an explosive run of 45 yards early in the game by Caden Durham further highlights the challenge. That 45 yards came on one run, 14 came on the other 22. That is a huge issue. And Alabama, credit to Alabama's defense. They did an amazing job. I thought the linebackers played the best game of their career. But LSU, I'm not sure what's happened the last 6 quarters, but it better get righted, and it better get righted quick, or else they're staring at a couple more L's down the stretch.